Good afternoon, everyone. This is Caitlin from TechServe Alliance, and welcome to today's webinar in the 2018 certification series. So much to do, so little time. There will be a question and answer session after the presentation, so feel free to write in any questions you want answered in the question box on the right side of your screen. We are also recording today's presentation, which will be available to TechServe members on the TechServe Alliance website and will be sent out in follow-up emails to all registrants. And I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, Barb Bruno.
Thanks, Caitlin. It's always such a pleasure to train for the TechServe Alliance members. And I think this is a topic that we actually got from some owners where everybody is just sort of overwhelmed. Things are so busy right now. And what a great problem to have. We have so many jobs to fill, and it just seems like we do have so much to do in so little time. And so we're going to talk about, that exact topic today. In the reality of life, I mean, we all the same 168 hours every week, but how you utilize your time greatly impacts your production and level of success. And I'm sure you've met people that just seem to get so much more done than everyone else. Well, they've figured out how to make best use of your time. We can't manage time. I'm always asked by people to do time management programs, and I don't think you can manage time. We can't. What we can manage is what we do within the time that we're allotted. And so today what we're going to discuss is how do you determine the 20% that gives you 80% of your results? And why is planning non-negotiable? If you're listening to my voice today and you arrived at work this morning and you didn't know what you were going to do today, you didn't have a succinct plan, you didn't have all of your outgoing calls planned, you're going to wipe out a good hour or so every morning. So we're going to talk about why planning is non-negotiable. And lastly, the importance of segmenting your day. And the minute I say that, people say, well, you can't segment your day when you're a recruiter. Sure you can. And you can do that if you're an owner or manager as well. So these are the three topics that we're going to actually discuss today. Let's go to how do you determine your 20%. Ask yourself consistently, is this best use of my time? In fact, what I would propose that all of you do is actually print that out. Type that up and print that out and put that on your computer monitor. Put that where you're working by your phone. Because if the answer is no, then you need to either delegate the task to someone else, or you need to do those tasks on non-prime time hours. We only have roughly 5.5 or 6 hours every day, unless you're working multiple time zones, to really reach people that we have to reach. And I know much of what we're doing now is done with InMail, and it's done by email and texting and a lot of other methods of communication, but we're still in the relationship building business. And you don't want the only communication you have with someone to remain on technology. It's really important to be high tech and high touch. You're getting 80% of what you do from 20% of your actions. And what you want to do once you identify those top talents, the talents that you have that represent the 20%, the key is to spend more of your time completing those exact actions. We do a lot during the day that does not give us any results. And again, this could easily require you to give up tasks that you enjoy. What if you really enjoy giving free career consulting to candidates you're never going to place? I'm told by recruiters all the time that one of their favorite tasks is they feel really good when they give free advice to people because they know people are desperate. They know people are, trying to find jobs. And so they really enjoy giving free consulting to candidates. Well, you and I both know that those are not the candidates we're going to place in jobs. The candidates that really need jobs that are out there, are not the candidates that you and I place. You and I place candidates who have skills, stability, and experience. And they've got the credentials that our clients want to hire. But we only place 5% of the people that come to us. We place 5% of the people that our firm attracts. So it's that other 95% that wants the free career consulting. But I want you to think about something. Every time you give free career consulting to a candidate you're not going to place, I want you to give them $100. I want you to write them a check for $100 or just give them a $100 bill, because that's at least what it's costing you. If you spend 30 minutes giving somebody free career advice, that's 30 minutes that you could have spent on candidates that are going to be placed in jobs or on clients, generating new business. And so we can't afford, and that's hard. I had an individual that worked for me, And she basically, I said, I'm not going to put an awning over your desk that says nonprofit. And yet she felt so sorry for the candidates that really needed jobs. And that's when we came up with referring them, give them other resources, give them something to do. But you can't afford that. So sometimes when you're trying to key in on best use of your time, you have to give up things that you enjoy, but they're not the things that are making you money. That's why you really have to watch what you're doing. And the only way you can do this is for the next 4 weeks, be very aware of the actions you take that provide you with results. It's easy to be busy in our profession, but that doesn't guarantee success. What does guarantee success is being focused on the right actions that represent your top talents, that 20% of activity that provides you with results, and you want to spend as much of your time doing those tasks. And you have to stop doing the things that are a waste of your time. We've got limited time, limited hours. And the other thing too is, if you're doing some of those other things, if you're going to do that type of thing, do it on your own time. Don't do it during the day, because your owner is in business to make profits. They're not in business to provide a job for you. And I don't know an owner out there that's going to put an awning over your desk that says nonprofit. And that's why you've got to determine that 20%. It really makes it easier for you to consistently produce more. Once you know what you're really great at and you keep doing more of that, you will just continually be more successful. Now, next, let's discuss why planning is non-negotiable. In order to segment your day, you also need to plan. If you don't plan your day, what happens is urgent things can take the place of important results-oriented tasks that should be your focus. We've got people on both sides of our sale, and it's the people that we're not going to place in jobs that call the most. When people ask you, can I call you? And you say yes, sometimes you don't realize they're going to call you daily just for an update. And this is someone you're never going to place in a job. You need to explain why you can't place somebody. You don't need to call me, but these are the things you need to do in order to find a job. This is the reason I'm not going to be able to help you right now. But if you do these things, I'd love to talk to you in 18 months. That's what you have to say. Now, if you're not a planner, there is one step you can implement today that will increase your current level of success, and I guarantee you that if you just do this one thing, it will increase your level of success. And that's all I want you to do is write down the 6 things closest to the money every single day before you leave work. You have to do planning before you leave work. If you're not a planner, you've got to learn to write down the 6 non-negotiable actions closest to the money for the following day. And those are your top priorities, which must be completed. So if you're not a planner, and obviously I love this picture because it's a paper planner. Planning is done, online. We don't do paper planners anymore. But you've got to plan out, and even if you're just planning out on your calendar, if you don't have a formal planner, just plan out what you're going to accomplish the next day. But step 1 to planning is writing down the 6 things, the 6 top priorities closest to the money. Whatever you write down tonight, you have to do them tomorrow. You can't leave work until you do them. So what this helps you do is important things are never going to slip through the cracks. And I can tell you, I have forgotten to debrief somebody after an interview, or I've forgotten to prep somebody. Or I forgot to check a reference, and here I've got an offer pending a reference check, and I got so busy during the day that I guess I made one call in the morning, but then I forgot to follow up. And I've got an offer waiting on that reference check. And because we get busy, sometimes that stuff just falls through the cracks. When I started writing down the 6 things closest to the money every night, I never forget important things. And I've been doing this now for close to 15 years. And I do it consistently. I write down the 6 things, 6 top priorities I have to finish the next day. And what it does is it keeps me so focused on the important things. And that's what all of us have to do. We have to focus on best use of our time so those important things don't, slip through the cracks as we're doing urgent things. Strategy number 2 is stop talking or worrying about what you have to get done. Both of those activities are just a waste of time. If you've got to worry about something, limit yourself to 5 minutes and then focus on solutions or actions. We don't have time in our profession to focus on problems because with people on both sides of our sale, problems are going to happen. Problems are going to happen, from the minute we start interviewing candidates right on through the time that we place them out on a contract or a job. Even after they start, there can be problems that hit. But as a recruiter, and why planning is non-negotiable, is you're not going to worry about things. If something happens and you realize it's a top priority, you're going to deal with it now, but you're going to deal with it focused on the solution, not sitting there wallowing in the problem. We just can't do that. And if any of you are sitting there telling yourself day in and day out that there are just no candidates, like it is impossible to find talent, that's why you have a job. That's why business is so great right now. When employers can't find candidates and it's really, really hard to find talent, that's when you should make the most money, because we know how to find them. We know how to find those passive candidates. All your clients are doing is posting on their websites and using job boards. You and I know how to recruit. And so if you hear yourself, worrying about, oh my God, how are we going to fill these openings? Just identify new resources for candidates consistently and realize every time you say that, that's great news for us. Not great news for companies, but great news for us. That's why we're so busy right now. Strategy number 3 is stop answering emails as they arrive. Set time aside first thing in the morning, midday, and at the end of the day to answer email, because email is one of the greatest distractions to results-oriented activity. If you've got it set up where every time an email comes in, it pops up on the bottom right of your computer, I'm telling you to turn that off, because that's a habit at this point. And probably 75% of the email you get are others people's priorities and not yours. Now, that's not to say that sometimes we get a very important email that we want to react to. But if you've got certain clients that insist on emailing everything, give them a different email address and check that email more frequently. But your general email that everybody has, I'm telling you, most of the emails you get in are other people's priorities, and they're just a distraction of your time. But it's easier to click on an email and answer it or react to it than it is to make an outgoing call. But it's not best use of your time. Those incoming emails and answering, things that are not urgent, not important, that really is taking you away from those tasks that can make you money. And by the way, we tell our clients why we answer email 3 times a day. What we say to them is during the morning, we are doing a recruiting blitz in our office, and we are trying to match the talent to the open requisitions you've given us. So we answer email first thing in the morning, we answer it midday, and at the end of the day. If you need to reach me, call my office and tell them to interrupt me, and I will take your call as a client of mine. Anytime I'm there, I will take your call. But we've realized that email was wiping out our efficiency, and that's why to serve you better, we only answer email 3 times a day, and you're going to tell your candidates the exact same thing, except you're not going to tell them to interrupt you when they call, because the people that interrupt you, you want those to be hits from your marketing or recruiting initial calls, but you don't want people calling you and interrupting you that are not that 5% you're going to place. So you tell candidates, we answer email 3 times a day, early morning, midday, and afternoon. And if you've got an update on your resume or you've been on interviews, because I don't want to duplicate anything you do, and when you go on an interview, it helps me fine-tune my efforts on your behalf, we take those calls between 4 and 5. So we set aside an hour every day to take any updates you might make on your resume, or also learn about some of the jobs you're looking at yourself, because we don't want to duplicate your efforts. We don't want to ruin anything that you're doing on your own, and it helps me do a better job for you. When I see what you're doing, it helps me fine-tune my efforts on your behalf. If I want someone to do something, or I want them to accept a process that I'm adapting, like answering email 3 times a day, I've got to show everybody why it benefits them, not that I'm just tired of being interrupted by email. I have to show my clients why it benefits them for me to do this, and I have to show candidates why it benefits them for me to do this. Strategy number 4 is swallow the biggest frog first. Do the activity that you dread most first. If you don't get a dreaded task off your plate, it prevents you from peak performance throughout your entire day. So plan those actions very early on your planner. If you've got to tell somebody they didn't get a job, if you've got to tell a client that a candidate took a counteroffer, if a client wants somebody to extend their contract and the candidate goes, no, unless you get me $10 more an hour, I've already got something else lined up. Those are not fun calls for us to make. But if you don't make them, they're in the back of your mind the whole day. And so it prevents you from being at your best. And we have people's lives in our hands every day, and so they deserve us at a level 10. If we're asked to work at a scale of 1 to 10 because of what we do for a living, we have to perform at a level 10 every day. We can't perform at a 9 or an 8 or a 7 or a 5 because we don't want to give somebody bad news. Get the ugly things off your desk first. So then you've got it done, and now you can focus on best use of your time. Strategy number 5 is I want you to imagine a suitcase outside the door of your office. And I want you to dump all your personal issues, your challenges, all the things that are driving you crazy, your kids, your spouse, your dog, I don't care. Dump everything in that suitcase that concerns you or that stresses you out. Because if you drag that baggage into work with you, it can prevent you from focusing on work and it can limit your success. And even if the main things that are bothering you are your bills and you keep thinking about, oh my God, I've got to make more money. I've got to close those deals. I need money. No, that's not what you do. You stick the bills in the suitcase. And when you walk in the office, what you tell your mind is, I'm a money magnet. It's going to be a great day. I'm a money magnet. Everything I do is going to work. Because the energy you put out there is really what comes back to you. If you're constantly worried and concerned and stressed out by all the things in your personal life, it really does impact your ability to perform on the job. When you focus on the results or an activity because you've got it planned out and you leave your baggage outside of your office, watch what happens. And the problem is, if you bring the baggage in the office with you, did somebody arrive at work today and the minute they arrived at work, you found yourself saying, oh my God, what's wrong? Because you could just tell by their body language and kind of moaning and walking in and it just kind of, they entered the room and the oxygen got sucked out of the room. Well, now everybody starts discussing that person's problem. And so what happened was, even if their coworkers left their baggage at the door, now they're all involved in your baggage. And so you're also shutting them down. You're making them concerned and worried, and now they might not be able to work at peak performance. And you don't want to do that to your coworkers. If you want to discuss personal stuff, discuss it over the lunch hour, discuss it at the end of the day. But don't bring the nonsense in first thing in the morning when everybody should be pumping themselves up as they're getting to work. I don't care what you do in the car as you're driving to work or if you take public transportation, you've got to figure out what is it that puts you in a great mood. With me, it's music. My friends always laugh when they go in my car because they accuse me, your grandkids in your car. I go, no, that's my station. And they go, you listen to that? And I said, oh yeah, it just pumps me up as I'm driving. It pumps me up it motivates me on my way to work. And they go, you've got to be kidding. And I go, oh no, it just, that's what, music has a real big impact on me. And I know that. So of course I'm going to think about positive things on the drive to work. Now, when you leave the office, what you're going to do is you're going to open the suitcase outside the door of the office and throw all the garbage that went on during the day from your office in the suitcase. And then you could pick up your personal stuff on your way home. But you don't want to bring the nonsense that happens every day. There's a lot of craziness that happens in our life, a lot of disappointments, a lot of frustration, because we do have people on both sides of our sale. That's why the recruiting profession is challenging. What we do is not brain surgery, but it can be gut-wrenching because we've got crazy people on both sides of our sale, and they do really stupid things, and they change their minds and change their priorities. And as a result, even if we do a great job, sometimes things blow up in our face. But if you go home and constantly complain about your job, you're going to hear your spouse or your kids say, well, why don't you quit if you're that miserable? Oh, I'm not miserable. I love what I do. Well, it doesn't sound like that to them. So leave your work at the door of your office. Now, you might have to pop a few phone calls. If you're a high achiever in this profession, you're going to make a few phone calls at night. But you don't want to do them begrudgingly. You're doing them because it helps you provide the type of lifestyle that you deserve to live, and it helps you provide for the people that you love. But don't bring the garbage from home into the office, and don't take the garbage that happens at work home with you. Try to separate those two. You'll just be much happier, and you'll be more efficient. Strategy number 6 is plan to conduct sourcing and research during evening hours. Conduct social media networking efforts on non-prime time. You can't spend all day long sending emails on LinkedIn. That's something you should be doing during evening hours or non-prime time hours. I want to give you an example. I was just hired by a technology company to do an in-house training session for them last month. And this was a large company. And so when I walked in, the owner had asked me to observe his team the first day. So I went on some sales calls with his outside salespeople. And during the morning, I was going to listen to a recruiting blitz. And he had close to 40 recruiters. And they have kind of an open concept. I mean, they have the walls that are halfway up, the modular units. But I could hear everybody. And so he just wanted me to walk around and take notes, and then he wanted me the second day to conduct whatever training I felt his people needed, and then I was going to observe certain individuals that were having issues, and he wanted me to try to get to the bottom of what was going on with some people that were just having slumps. So I started out at 8:30 in the morning in his huge area, his beautiful offices, and I'm sitting kind of in the corner, and all I hear is clicking. I hear clicking on the computer all morning long, okay? I heard no one on their phones. I heard no one having conversations. I heard clicking. Now, he told me he wanted me to listen to their recruiting calls. He wanted me to, give him some idea what was going on. Well, I sat there from 8:30 until like 9:15, I think maybe 45 minutes, because I couldn't stand it. And I walked in his office and I said, I'm sorry, are your people supposed to be doing recruiting calls? And he said, well, yes. I told them I wanted you to hear the recruiting calls. And I said, not one person has made a call all morning. And this is not the first time something like this has happened to me. And he went, Barbara, come on, I know that they're all on their phones. And I go, really? I go, come on, walk out there with me and tell me what you hear. And he and I stood there for 30 minutes. And he just looked at me and like shrugging, like, what are they doing? And I said, I have a feeling that they're doing research. I have a feeling that they're sending emails on LinkedIn. I said, I have a feeling that they're deciding what they're going to do, but nobody is making phone calls. So after the 30 minutes, he calls everybody into their large conference area, and we have a meeting. And he goes, well, how many of you, were doing a recruiting blitz this morning? And almost every hand went up. And I said, okay, a recruiting blitz to me is reaching out on contacts that you've already identified, and you're either leaving messages for them to get them to call you back, or you're connecting with people. So I didn't hear one conversation. And so we went person by person, and everybody was doing the same thing. They were figuring out where they were going to source candidates. They were doing emails on LinkedIn. Not one person had had a conversation in an hour and a half. And so what I'm saying to all of you is that sourcing and research and emails are things that you do on non-primetime hours. During the hours of 9 to 11:30 and 1:30 to 4, if you're working a local market, is when you have to be reaching out to people. This is still a relationship building business. And yes, a lot of it is going to be leaving voicemails, but leave a voicemail that people are going to talk, are going to return rather. You can't leave a voicemail. I saw your credentials on LinkedIn. I have a job that I think is going to be a fit. Call me. Because what you've told them is, hi, I'm a salesperson. I want to sell something to you. And they're probably getting 20 of those calls a day if they're a .NET developer. They're tired of getting all these calls on their working hours. And you and I both know if you're placing IT, those people cannot talk during the day. I just got back from a technology conference 6 days ago, and I was speaking at it, and they all tell me the same things. And they'll start out by saying, you stupid recruiters, you call me on the job. My boss is next to me, my coworkers are next to me, and you're asking me about a new job. I can't talk. Get my home phone number and call me when I get home from work, or get my cell, and I'll talk to you. But I can't have a conversation. And because I made a comment, I said, well, you can't be rude to a recruiter that could change your life. They go, we have to be rude if our boss is sitting next to us. But would most of us think about a change? Of course we would. Of course we would. But you can't call us on the job. We're not going to answer you. We're going to be rude because we got to be rude in front of our boss. So, if you don't ever want to make a call past 5 o'clock, you can still be an okay recruiter. You'll never be a great recruiter because, especially if you're in the IT niche, those candidates cannot talk during the day. So you want to plan to do certain things in the evening. During the day, you make your initial reach outs, and then you get a cell phone or you get a home phone and you pop a call at night. The beauty about that is that when you plan this out and you know who you're reaching out to, the beautiful part about what you and I do is if we make a call at night, we're not in the office, we're at home. Or you could be at the beach, or you could be at someone else's house, and you spend 20 or 30 minutes on the phone with someone, and then you go back to your personal life. It's not like you have to be sitting at a desk in your office working when we work overtime. Have to work some evening hours. We can just do it whenever it's convenient for us. Strategy number 7 is make a commitment today to take time before you leave work to become a consistent planner. Remember, planning is the number one common denominator of big billers. Anybody that you know that produces millions of dollars in production a year, they know who they're calling and they know why they're calling and when they're calling. Now, obviously, you're going to do this on your computer. You're going to automate this. But you have to plan out your calls, because if you don't, I guarantee you, you are wiping out 90 minutes a day planning. And if you don't have resources for candidates you're not going to place, and you're giving them constant updates and that they keep calling you, you're spending another hour doing free career consulting a day. In fact, the average recruiter spends 60 to 90 minutes a day talking to candidates they're never going to place. So guess what? We just put 2.5 or 3 hours back in your day just by these two ideas. So whenever you hear yourself saying, I have no time, the trick is, the solution is get organized, and plan out what you're going to do. And you will have time in your day to do, more than enough time to get done what you need to get done. Now let's move over to segmenting your day. You can't segment your day, by the way, if you don't plan your calls, because one of the best ways to manage your time efficiently is to plan and to segment your day. They work hand in hand. We hold all incoming calls and we don't answer emails from 9 to 12 every day. And what we do is we set this time aside for making 65% of our outgoing calls, because those constant incoming calls are a complete interruption of our time. Now, what we do is we tell our candidates again, and we tell our clients how this benefits them. We tell our clients every day until noon, we are doing a recruiting blitz. We are doing everything we can to surface new talent. We're going through our own database to make sure of matches we have. We're working our network, and we're doing recruiting blitzes to make sure we find you the best person for the job, not the best person in our database. So every morning until noon, that's what we're doing. By the way, Mr. or Mrs. Client, if you need to reach me, just call my office and say you need to interrupt me, and they will interrupt me, because they know you're a client. So just say, I told you to interrupt me. Now, during this time, okay, obviously between 9 and noon, before noon, we're trying to get at least 65% of our calls done, and those people are going to call back. And of course, you don't want them not to get you on the phone. So this is the message we leave. When we're making recruiting or marketing calls, we leave the same message. My name is Barb Bruno. My phone number is blah, blah. Someone suggested we talk. When you call me back, do me a favor. Please tell whoever answers the phone to interrupt me no matter what I'm doing. I don't want to miss your call or have you end up in my voicemail. I look forward to our conversation. Again, my name is Barb Bruno. I'm going to repeat my phone number. Have a great day. Thanks. The reason this call works is there's a couple reasons. Number one, you said someone suggested we talk. And so say you're making recruiting calls and they go, well, who suggested we talk? I actually am representing a person in a confidential search, and I always ask people, who are the best programmers, who are the best engineers, who are the best .NET developers you've ever worked with, and that's how I got your name. And if I were ever to represent you, I would extend you that same level of confidentiality. So it was obviously someone who worked with you in the past and knew the quality of your work, because I'm always looking for outstanding talent. And that's how I got your name. If it's a client call and they say, who suggested we talk? And say, we always ask candidates where they want to work. We always ask them where they want to work and why. And after we kept hearing your name over and over and over again, we realized that these candidates really wanted us to be representing you. We represent the best talent. We also want to represent the companies that candidates want to work for, that this talent wants to work for. And it's wonderful that you've got such a great reputation in the marketplace. And that's why we're going to do whatever we can to become one of the resources you use for talent. So it's very easy to get around, who said that we talk. The other thing is, you say when you call back, interrupt me. So how do I feel? I feel pretty darn important. Now, that's not to say that when you're making recruiting calls, that if you know what a person has done and you know something about them, that if you present a job, they're going to jump on it. But you will get many more callbacks by leaving this as your initial message. When you get an incoming call and the caller states, Barb said to interrupt her, you know that's either a recruiting or a marketing hit. And again, you've got to show the clients how it benefits them, that we're looking for new talent. They want, they love the fact that we do a recruiting blitz for 3 hours every morning. In fact, they'll say to us, why don't other recruiters do that? Like, it always amazes us. When we call, we always get other recruiters right on the phone, and we don't get you guys necessarily on the phone right away. So we know you're out there on our behalf working for us. And again, we tell our candidates, we spend the day marketing their skills to potential clients, and we set the time aside from 4 to 5. And what's beautiful about that is, who calls you the most? It's never the candidates you're going to place in a job. It's the people that most recruiters aren't talking to you, and you were talking to them, so they're going to keep calling you every day. When you say I set the time between 4 and 5 aside, we tell them if there's any updates on your resume, or you've gone in an interview, and that fine tunes what we do. So if they call just to ask for an update, say there really is no update. And by the way, the only time you really need to call us is if you update your resume or you've gone in an interview, because I don't want to double do what you're doing, and that helps me fine tune my efforts on your behalf. But if I get anything, believe me, you will hear from me. And if you can't place them in a job, by all means, be honest. Don't give these people false expectations, or don't have them not know what's going on. You've got to say, we place people with skills, stability, experience in this niche. We're very focused. Unfortunately, this is the reason we're not going to be able to help you right now, but this is what you can do, and give them something to do. If you give them free advice, they keep calling you. If you give them something to do, they stop calling you because they're afraid you're going to ask them if they did it. And most people just want to talk to somebody, and they don't really want to take the steps necessary to find a job. And you can't be their free career consultant. Like I said, imagine every time you find yourself doing that, imagine, writing out a check or sending them, $100 cash, wiring them $100 because you talk to them, because that's at least what it costs you every time you give free advice. That's the best way to stop doing that. Focus on the time and basically the efforts that in the areas where you have the greatest need, because you're going to get your results where you place your efforts. When you segment your day, that's what happens. If you don't have a strong order flow or you don't have enough contracts to work, then you need to spend 90% of your day focused on marketing efforts. If you don't have the candidate flow, you've got to spend 90% of your day, reaching out to new candidates, working your network. 40% of your new clients and 40% of your new candidates should come from referrals. And if that's not the case, maybe you really need to think about, okay, what have I done to really develop a strong candidate and client referral program? You can't wait for clients to call you. You've got to be extremely proactive and take control of your personal level of success and focus on that 5% of the candidates you're going to place. I will never forget that I was at a conference. It was not TechServe Alliance. I was speaking at another conference, and the director of the conference came running over to me, and she said, Barb, would you do a roundtable for us? Because somebody no-showed, and we've got a whole table full of people, and we have nobody there. And I said, absolutely. So I ran into the hall, and I sat down at the round table, and one of the first things that was said to me by this person at the round table was, I said, so, what are you doing to generate, new business? Because the topic of the table was generating new clients, generating business. And one of the women at the table said, I don't know what to do because nobody's calling us. And I said, no, what are you doing? And she goes, well, what am I supposed to do? Nobody's calling us. There's nobody to call back. And I said, well, what are you doing proactively, to find new clients? And she goes, well, no, our business is called in. And I go, right, but you're telling me that the phones aren't ringing. Nobody's calling you. So what are you doing? And she said, we don't know what to do because our phones are dead. That can never be you. You can control your own destiny. The beautiful part about this job is you can be a millionaire or you could make minimum wage. That's up to you. Your owner is never going to come over to you and say, don't land any more clients. Don't interview any more candidates. You hit your goal this month. Just go home for the rest of the month. They're never going to do that. But you know what? Your owner or manager doesn't write your paycheck. You're the one that writes your paycheck. And you're going to make more money if you're proactive versus reactive. You cannot sit at your desk waiting for things to happen. The job market is candidate driven, and it's the recruiter who can produce top talent the fastest that will win. And it's going to remain candidate driven for a long time. And so you've got to go out there and proactively land the clients that your candidates want to work for. And you've got to focus on the 5% of the candidates that you're going to place in jobs and provide resources for the other 95%. And the resource is not you giving free career advice. It's time for you to focus on best use of your time. It's time to let planned outgoing calls, not the incoming calls, control your destiny. If you want to make more money this year, than you've ever made in your life, plan your outgoing calls. Don't let other people control your income, because when you don't have your outgoing calls planned, it's those incoming calls that keep you busy, but those incoming calls are almost always other people's priorities, not yours. They're hurting your ability to live the lifestyle that you deserve. And it's time to segment your day to produce greater results. I'm sure when I said we hold calls till noon, I'm sure a lot of you were sitting there going, what, is she crazy? How could they possibly do that? The sales in our office in the first quarter after we started doing that went up by 32% in one quarter by having everybody do that. And I had people that worked for me basically say that it was going to cost us a fortune and no one was going to be, and I had a couple people that did not embrace it. And it was interesting because they didn't tell their clients and candidates why it benefited them. And all I kept hearing from 3 or 4 people that worked for me were all the reasons during that period of time why this was a crazy idea and it wasn't going to work. And it didn't work for those 3 or 4 people because they didn't do what I asked them to do. They didn't follow instructions. They didn't make the change, and they were doing everything they could to prove why it was not going to work. See, if you think you can do something or you think you can't do something, you're right. I'm sure that when when you looked at this profession, you realized that you can earn 6 figures. We have more people earning 6 figures in our profession than just about any other profession out there because it's not that difficult to get to that level, but it does take paying a price, and it takes some time to get established. The longer you do this, the more efficient you can get and the more money you can earn. But again, if I said some things and you're going, well, I don't want to plan, I don't have time to plan. I said that for the first 10 years of my profession. And finally, I said, you don't work in a staffing and a recruiting firm because you wouldn't make that statement, plan your day, work your plan. I go every phone call and they go, so do you feel like a fireman? I go, yeah, I do. And they go, if you plan, you won't. The urgent things distract you. They don't take over your day. You get back to the important things because you've got a plan. And I'm telling you, when I started planning was when my production totally changed and my business totally changed. And even when I travel and I speak, when I'm at the TechServe conference speaking, I've still written down 6 priorities for the day because I am not on the podium 8 hours. So I'm still doing things that are best use of my time. When I leave for that conference, I have my priorities, the 6 top priorities for the day that I get back to the office. I've got them already set before I leave. Now, they may change when I'm gone, but I've already got them set because that's my next scheduled day in the office. And I don't want to walk in and try to decide what needs my focus. And I can't afford to do that, and neither can you. If you follow the advice in this webinar, I guarantee you, you're going to understand the importance of segmenting your day. And more importantly than anything else, you're not going to find yourself saying, oh, I've got so much to do and there's no time. Because you're going to stop doing those things that are a big fat waste of your time, and you're going to focus on things that make you money. Now, if you enjoyed this training, you know that TechServe Alliance has a certification program for recruiters and for account executives. There is a study guide that is over 100 pages of information just like you got today. I actually wrote the study guide for TechServe Alliance, and the study guide gives you industry practices. It gives you best practices both for recruiters and account executives, and then it teaches you the laws. TechServe is the only organization in the country that has a certification program that teaches best practices. Everybody else, their certification programs are 100% law. And what TechServe wanted is, of course, you need to know the laws, and you have to adhere by the code of ethics, that the certification, program also is part of the program. But what they wanted to do is help you get better at your job, help you make more money. And it's interesting because we can't guarantee that. I mean, we can't guarantee that every person that gets certified makes more money. But I can tell you personally, I've got hundreds of emails from people that took the prep class, took the certification exam, and they're certified, and they're constantly, emailing me, thanking me for ideas that are making them much more successful. So if you like the training today and you're not certified, please strongly consider doing it. It's like, would you go to a dentist without a DDS or a doctor without an MD? Probably not, and why should people use you? Now, I can tell you, I train for LinkedIn Learning. I'm doing a lot of courses online for LinkedIn Learning, and every course I'm doing for recruiting, I'm basically telling people to ask for certifications, whether I'm training the end users that we have or people in our profession, because that's how strongly I believe in certification. It is definitely worth your time. If you took level 1, why haven't you taken level 2? Those are case studies. Now you really know if you know the materials, because it's the same study materials, but now you've got to read a case study and you've got to figure out what do you need to apply to the case study to basically be handling it the way someone would be handling it if they were implementing best practices. So I would strongly recommend, if you enjoy this training, sign up today. And if your owner doesn't pay for certification, that doesn't prevent you from investing in yourself. In most, professions, it ends up being the person that gets their certification. So, don't let the fact that your owner is not backing this to stop you. Anybody can sign up for the certification program. For additional information on certification, you can either call that number and you can ask for Caitlin or Susan, because they're both, heading up the certification program. I know there's some other people at TechServe that also help. Or you see that email, that email address. And if you want to know pricing, or it basically to me is a 30-day commitment. If you signed up today, you could easily read the study guide a couple times and feel comfortable with the information and learn the best practices and the laws and industry practices in less than a month. And so think about that, by the time, July 1st is here, you're certified and you're marketing it to your clients. All right, what I want to do now is open the line for any questions you have. The questions don't have to only be about planning, or segmenting your day. The questions can be about anything that's important to you, and we have a very, very large group today. So let me go through the questions, and let me see if anybody raised their hand. Oh, and by the way, you can ask me questions one of two ways. When you called in, you were given a phone number, an access code, and a PIN number. If you put all three in and you're on a landline, you can go to the control panel, and toward the top you see that hand. If you click on that, I can unmute your lines and you and I can talk. We can role play. I actually have had, I've helped people close deals on these calls. So if you've got any question, you can basically just raise your hand, or you can go down below in the question area. And if you go down below, you can type in any questions. So I don't see any hands being raised. Let me go down below. I have one person saying he can't hear me. Tracy, I'm hoping you can hear me now. I'm not sure why you weren't able to hear us, because we've got well over, we've got hundreds of people on this phone, and no one is complaining that they can't hear me. So it might be something on your computer. Hopefully you're hearing me now. I see absolutely no questions, and we always allow time, for questions. We've got about 15 minutes here if anybody has any questions. Let me go back and see if anybody raised their hand. Nobody wants to talk to me today. I'm not going to take that personal. Oh, here's a question. Hey, Barb, what about overtime laws for recruiters and doing calls after hours? It's interesting because, when you stop and think about it, the hours that people really work, it's interesting to me, because people arrive at work and they start making their first call after 9 o'clock, and they take a long lunch hour or take breaks. To me, I know what a lot of owners are doing is they're having different hours. Like they're having some people work 8 to 5, on 2 days a week, and then on 3 days a week they're working 10 to 7, so they can get those evening hours in. So if you're worried about overtime laws, what I would suggest is you have very varied work schedules, and the reason is that that way you can get those evening calls, and we're in IT, it's just critical. So if you do have somebody that, that you're worried about the overtime laws, then just offer different working hours. Let's see, why do you write down 6 items for the next day? Why not 5 or 10? Where did you come up with 6? It wasn't my idea, Brendan. It was Dale Carnegie. I stole it from him. I read a lot of books, and I read a lot about coaches, but because I'm in Indiana and it's all the steel mills, I wanted to read the history of U.S. Steel, because they're a big client of mine, and I just went back to study them. And Dale Carnegie was having a massive program decades ago where the steel mills were not effective, and they were losing money. They weren't making money. And he had his family fortune tied up in the mill, and he didn't know what to do, because he'd go out in the plants, and there was just inefficiency from the laborers right up through his management team. So we hired a consulting company, and the consulting company came in, and what they said to Dale Carnegie was, we're not going to charge you for our services. What we want is a percentage of the increase in sales for 3 years after we leave. So, whatever you increase in sales as a result of implementing our ideas, we just want a small percentage of the increase in sales. Well, they ended up making millions of dollars, and they gave Dale Carnegie one idea. They said nobody is focusing on priorities. People are very busy, but they're not doing top priorities. Have your management team, have your workers all write down the 6 things that are most important for them to get done the next day. Because less than 6 is not enough, more than 6 is too much. So he came up with 6. Have them do 6 things closest, and your salespeople, 6 things closest to the money. And so that's the part that I stole, because, top priorities, and again, what's beautiful about this, if you're an owner or you're in management and you ask your people to write down 6 priorities closest to the money, have them leave them out on their desk, because this is the first step to being a planner, and you will be shocked at what people think are close to the money. Because what's really interesting is if somebody doesn't have 6 things close to the money, what does that tell them? Well, they better be out there recruiting like crazy or marketing like crazy because they're not close to a deal. So it's a very revealing exercise. And so the 6 comes from Dale Carnegie. It was not my idea. I stole it, and it works. I mean, I've been doing 6 things closest to the money for well over 15 years, and so does everybody that works for me. And it's just the right number. In fact, I'll have some of my people that work for me say, 6 is too many. Can we do 3? I'm like, no. If it worked for Dale Carnegie and it's worked for a lot of people that work for me, it'll work for you. But it's very revealing if you just do this. And again, important things don't fall through the cracks. And that's what's really important, is that it guarantees that you're putting your actions where you're going to make money. Managers never return calls. How do you get them to return calls? I do the exact same, voicemail. Now, if you're saying managers never return calls, if you're talking the first phone call, Michael, then I would say leave the voicemail. I left, and we have like an 80% callback on that voicemail. If this is a manager that you're working with, and so they know who you are and they're not returning your calls, it's because you're calling for an update. You want to return phone call, and the person you're calling doesn't see what's in it for them. If you call a client and say, I'm calling for an update, if they had an update, they would have called you. They're not calling you back, because either they don't have an update, or maybe the job's been put on hold, they don't want to tell you, and so they don't call you. So if you want someone to call you back, you've got to show them the what's in it for them. So if I'm going to call a manager, I'm going to say, I couldn't wait to pick up the phone. I've got some information I have to share with you, Michael. Please give me a call at your earliest convenience. So now I show him the benefit that I've got some information that I just have to share. I think it's going to help you. It's going to help you. It's going to help clarify something that I think you're really going to find interesting. Then they're going to call you back because now they see what's in it for them. Some states have passed laws about asking about compensation. How do you see that impacting what we do? That is the dumbest law that I think has ever been passed. And as a woman, that law was passed so that there's equal pay for women and men. And all it's done is made our job a lot harder. So you can't ask what they earned at their last job, but what you can ask is, what range are you looking for in your new job? And you let them know that you don't want to waste their time. I don't want to send you at a job that's making a lot less than what it is that you're looking for. And of course, if people are doing background checks on that, they're still finding out the information. But more and more states are passing this. It's not going away. I thought when it first came out that it was just going to be like 1 or 2 states being crazy, and that it wasn't going to pass. And what's driven it is the Me Too movement. And they're tying that into the Me Too movement, and they're doing it all about equal pay, where there's no disparity between female and male. And in those states, you cannot ask, what are you currently earning? It is against the law. And so now I don't see it going away. I see it staying, and we can just ask, what range do I need to send you to? Michael, you said it's a person you're cold calling. Then just leave them the voicemail on your handout. If I was going to call you, Michael, and it's a manager I'm trying to call him and say, Michael, I'm use your name first. Michael, my name is Barb Bruno. Someone suggested we talk. Do me a favor. When you call me back, I don't want you to end up in my voicemail. So please tell whoever answers the line to interrupt me no matter what I'm doing, so I don't miss your call. Again, my name is Barb Bruno. Here's my number. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. Have a great day. Thanks. They're more inclined to return that call than if you're calling and you're trying to market your services. So you're calling and saying, hi, I'm a salesperson. I would like to sell to you. Please call me back. Or if it's a manager that you're calling and you're trying to do business with them, and say you talk to a past employee, that's a great call. And if you're calling a manager, say, Michael, I just talked to someone who used to work for you, and it's not often that I hear such great things. I would love to share these with you. And everybody's going to call when they think you're going to tell them nice things about them. So that's a call that is easily returned. So there's a few things you can do, but those are just 2 examples. And there's a ton of examples in the study guide to certification. Let's see, what's the best way to kindly tell a candidate they wouldn't be a culture fit even though they could do the job? You have to be careful when you're saying culture fit, Brett, because people are going to translate, culture fit, in certain ways. And the problem is sometimes the culture a company thinks they have is not really the culture that exists, but they'll screen out candidates because they feel the person's not going to be a culture fit. And I would just say to the person, all they did is come back and say that it's just not a fit. And the reality of it was, Brett, they clicked with somebody. They just, people hire who they like, and somebody else's personality clicked better with the team when they were interviewed. And unfortunately, that's not something we could screen for. You've got great credentials, and they admitted you could do the job, but they just clicked with another candidate better. And if you use a word like they just clicked or they liked someone else better, people hire who they like. And unfortunately, someone's personality just clicked with our hiring authority, and they went with the other candidate, but they made sure to tell me that they thought you had great credentials. So pick the person up, but you don't want to say you didn't fit in with the culture, because sometimes they might think, well, what culture? Are they discriminating against me because I'm a woman, or because I'm black, or because I'm older? They'll instantly go all those places when you use the word culture. But if you say they just liked another candidate better, the personalities clicked, they can't argue with that. They can't argue that somebody else's personality was a better fit than them, but I would not use the word culture only because of the way it might be interpreted. Let's see. Are you telling the truth that I could really get my certification in less than a month? I wouldn't lie to you. I don't lie. I can tell you that if you signed up today, and what I tell people to do is sign up, you get access to the study guide, which is online. Read it once fast, like read the industry practices, law, and study guide. Read it once just through like you're reading a book. And then go back a second time and read it again and take notes. And then they've even got a prep class that's recorded if you want to take the prep class, where I'm going through some critical knowledge points. I'm showing you the areas of that you should pay more attention to. You don't need to do that, but if you feel you need that crutch, we've also got the prep class that is recorded. But you could absolutely take your certification program by mid-June if you signed up today, for sure. And I've seen people do it in 3 weeks, but I would think average, I would give a person a month to get it done, because you're busy and it's summer and you've got to do some other things. But it's not, I train and I write like I talk. So it's not, and even the legal part was written by Craig Etter. And Craig we were working together, and we made sure that it's not all legal jargon that's going to confuse you. He wrote it in very easy to read, language, where even the legal training is not going to, it's not going to intimidate you. You're not going to feel like you have to, be an attorney to take it. Is a certification call online training or a book? The certification program is online. The study guide is online, and the exam is taken online. So everything is online. You actually contact TechServe Alliance, and they will get everything to you, but it's all web-based. It's all online. You don't have to go someplace to take the exam. You can study, at the convenience of in front of your computer, and you can take the exam on your computer as well. And I do tell you that once you've read the study guide the second time, don't second guess yourself. You've got it. If you took good notes, and just take the exam. Don't wait, because you're going to forget things. So if you make a commitment that once you've gone through the study materials twice, you take the exam. And I'll tell you what, Michael, I'll put an offer out. Anybody on this call, I will put an offer to you, and I might live to regret this. But anybody that takes their certification program and is certified by July 4th, that is on this call, whether you take level 1, level 2, whether you have one certification you're going for, like you might be a recruiter, now you're an account exec, you want to take that. Anybody on this phone that takes their certification exam and passes by July 4th, I will write a LinkedIn recommendation for you from me, and I will personalize it. I will learn what you do, and I will personalize a very strong LinkedIn recommendation for you, helping you promote your certification. So if any of you take the exam and you pass by July 4th, you just have to send me an email and put, recommendation in the subject line, where I'll realize that's what it is, and I will write you a LinkedIn recommendation if you pass by July 4th. All right, I can't think of anything else. I don't see any other hands. I don't see any other questions. Caitlin, did you want to add anything else in?
Thank you so much, Barb. That was a great presentation. So just that our next webinar is at the end of the month. It'll be on May 31st, and that's one of our State of the Industry quarterly webinars, where we talk about the general kind of a macro view of the staffing industry for technology and solutions. Additionally, as previously mentioned, this recording will be available on our website and be sent out in follow-up emails. So if you'd like to refer back to this, you can absolutely do so. I think that's about it. Thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
And thank you, Caitlin. Thank everybody for attending. Bye.